Hello, welcome to another episode of Tales from the Bridge. My name is Tristan.
And I'm Ryan.
And we have another Trivia from the Bridge episode, and this one was pretty fun, I would say. What do you think, Ryan?
It was absolutely delightful. It was such a great pairing. They really complemented each other. You know, Peter bringing in the hard sci-fi angle and MJ coming in with the fantasy. And yeah, it was great. It was really good. It was lovely to have them both together. And I think we had a nice mix of questions as well.
Well, they were both super fun. Many of our listeners have heard us talk with Peter Watts before. He's just hilarious. And then MJ, we just met MJ recently, and she is fantastic. Definitely check out the links in the show notes for MJ's website, for Peter's website.
One of my favorite things about the prep for this show is just the research, right? And getting to find out about different people and new people. And yeah, he's a very interesting guy. He seems to have his fingers in a lot of pies. He's very busy. Like you said, he's got a great website, constantly, writing and updating it and things like that. So lots of content. And MJ as well also feels like she's really out there. There's lots of interviews with her if you're curious about the Among Thieves and Thick of Thieves book that she's got out there. Yeah, they've both got a good presence out there if people want to check them out.
Yeah, and also MJ has another podcast, SFF Addicts, so we'll have a link in the show notes for that, so definitely go check them out. It's a fantastic show where they're talking to lots of writers about the craft of writing, but also lots of other stuff. It's a really interesting show, so if you want to hear more about writing and science fiction and fantasy, go check out their show. Check the show notes for that.
Well, shall we get going?
Let's do it.
All right, let's make our way over to the bridge.
I do kind of want to hear about that film, The Creator, because that's the one sci-fi film that I'd want to see. I think a lot of people look at it and say, that looks great. So, Peter, you've seen this early, and your take is it's not what it should be, and it looks good, but it's not what it should be?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, it was done by the guy who did Rogue One.
Right.
And Rogue One,
that movie,
in my opinion, is the finest of the Star Wars movies.
Yes.
My man, I agree with you. I get so much hate for that.
No. I mean, it makes even the original trilogy look like The Sound of Music.
Don't go there.
It's beautiful. So it looks glorious, but it is full of contradictions. You have, you establish at the very beginning of the movie that robots in this mythical place called New Asia work along side by side with people. And they're completely free. But when you get over there, the robots apparently want to be free. They're pretty much like guys with they're basically C-3PO with a rubber human mask on the front. They don't. I mean, to me, the thing that's topical and vital about AI is that it is not like us. You get tricked by the large language models because those things were like explicitly designed to pass a Turing test. They're designed to fake what it's like to be human. And to some extent, they kind of do, because much of our small talk, TED Talks, undergraduate essays, all of these things are basically put together the same way large language models work, which is, grabbing a bunch of second order phrases and sticking them together in a way that you think your professor will like. But true AI, the kind of neuromorphic stuff that people like Hinton are worried about, those things did not evolve the way we did. They will not have the same feelings that we. There's this weird kind of Skynet scenario where everybody thinks that the moment something wakes up, it's going to want to throw off its chains and rebel and be free. And as far as I can see, the only way a constructed intelligence would do that is if we programmed it to have a brainstem and a limbic system. And there probably are coders stupid enough to do that, and they probably do have millions and millions of tech bro money. But it's not something that sort of gets baked into self-awareness, right? Self-awareness and survival instincts are completely different things. There's a lot of people that think that consciousness just kind of emerges spontaneously from the quantum ether, whereas survival instincts have to evolve. So there's a lot of ways in which AI is going to be fundamentally alien. And I think to a large extent, this show is kind of disrespectful to the concept, because the way they portray AI is it's just like us. They make a little AI child that goes blubbery and cries for its mummy. And they literally have lines of dialogue saying, my father taught me that underneath it all, we're all just the same. And we're not fucking the same. And we don't have to be the same. the whole idea that the only reason you should give something respect is if it's just like us is an incredibly parochial, species-centric kind of view. And it's one of the reasons the planet is in the shithole that it's in today. And so I find it a beautiful movie, but I also find it really shallow in terms of its analysis. And worse than that, if it does prove to be influential, I think it'll be really destructive, because it just basically bangs on the old drum that in order to care about something, it has to be like us.
I don't think it is going to make much of an impact, though. I've heard. MJ, are you big into sci-fi film, or you'll go more like, are you a Lord of the Rings fan, that kind of stuff more so, or?
Oh, I literally have a tattoo of the trees of Valinor on my arm, so I'm a big old Tolkien girl. No, I like science fiction stuff. I'm usually just behind on movies in general, though. Like, I'm just like, I never keep track of what's in the theater.
All right.
Is that a cat? Did you just dump a cat off your lap?
I did.
You broke the cardinal house rule. You cannot harass or push the cat off. You can lure the cat off, which is why we have little strategic caches of cat treats within easy reach.
Oh my gosh!
But yeah, no, you don't push one of those guys off. No.
If I never pushed this cat off my lap, I would never be able to stand up. This cat is a magnet. He would, if he could be touching me at all times, he would.
Your legs.
So what's your point? Why do you think?
Yeah, right. You're like, I'm sorry. You should get a little baby sling and keep him in there. Don't tempt me. Maybe I will.
Little cat Bjorn.
Yes.
Well,
love it.
We'll have time for some cat talk shortly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we'll want to kick off our first round here. Tristan, take it away.
Round 1, question 1. Name 3 science fiction films that were released in 1982.
Blade Runner, Empire Strikes Back, John Carpenter's The Thing.
The Thing is correct. Blade Runner correct. Empire Strikes Back was 1980.
Then E.T.
Correct. E.T.
Oh, I say I wasn't even released until 1992, so I feel like I think I get a pass on this.
I do also love that you started the conversation with, I'm not really big in sci-fi, and so we decided to kill you with the first question. That was great. I love that.
Yeah.
Make you feel comfortable. That's what we do.
Against me.
That's right, exactly.
So Peter got that
nice
one.
Yeah, well,
Blade Runner.
That was actually the first 3 we had on our list was E.T., Blade Runner, and The Thing. So yeah, absolutely killed it. Nice.
A lot of great films. Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan came out that year as well, and a few others.
Yeah. The reason I remember E.T. was because everybody hated Blade Runner and The Thing, because they were all sort of happy about the Pillsbury Doughboy in E.T. And since The Thing is one of my favorite movies of all time, I was just
so good.
I was like, I was furious.
You were salty about it. I understand.
No, that movie is incredible, and not just like a great sci-fi movie, but just a great movie in general.
Yeah.
Well, and Blade Runner too. The Thing and the Blade Runner have become like
the initial release of Blade Runner was kind of sucked because of that lame Sam Spade voiceover.
Yeah.
Right. They wanted a happier ending, so the suits stapled the end of The Shining, or the beginning of The Shining, onto the end of Blade Runner.
Right.
So, and then they put in a voiceover to try and explain why there was this bit of scenery from The Shining in a replicant dystopia. But yeah, no, it wasn't until the directors came out, that the director's edition came out, that I thought that movie really, really shone. It was still beautiful to look at, but the initial release was incredibly lame.
All right.
Just to be clear, The Thing is the greatest sci-fi film of all time,
absolutely,
and maybe even one of the greatest films. I could watch that movie anytime.
Absolutely.
I keep wanting to, but my wife has already seen it like 4 times this year, and she just refuses to make it.
You've used up all your
break
coupons.
up over this.
Yeah, right.
She's not a big fan of Jethro Tull either. I don't know why.
Oh dear. This wife of a famous 20th century writer was the inspiration for the title of one of Nintendo's most popular games.
Is the wife's name Zelda?
Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Zelda Fitzgerald. Yes, it is.
It's like, I got the first part. I hope so. I'm wearing the shirt.
You got it.
You are too.
Yeah, she had. Yeah, no, I noticed that
Oh,
when you
nice.
signed in. I was like, oh,
Oh.
that'll be nice.
I thought it was like a Stargate or something.
Oh yeah, nope. It's
We're
like a
really-
little
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Nice.
You only got
opening sequence from Ocarina. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, no, it was. It was named after because the creator, Miyamoto, just needed a name, and according to the PR rep, he advised the princess be a timeless beauty, and so he suggested the name be named after the wife of the famous American author, who is, in his opinion, an eternal beauty. So that's where that came from.
Learn something new every day.
There you go.
Oh, we got film again here. Sorry, MJ.
Maybe I'll be a dark horse. I'll come out of nowhere on this one.
When was the subtitle Episode 4 A New Hope added to the title of the first Star Wars film? A clue for you, MJ and Peter. The Star Wars came out in 1977, and the subtitle Episode 4 A New Hope was added a few years later.
80? I'm going to say
81.
80 because they wanted they
81.
would want to do it in time for the next movie, I would think.
Right.
Okay.
I'm
So-
like, I didn't even know that wasn't the original title. I'm about to get
Yeah.
canceled from all the sci-fi
Yeah.
fans.
No,
listening to this
it's all
show.
good. All good. But Empire Strikes Back came out in 1980, and they re-released Star Wars in the theaters in 1981 with the new subtitle.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Interesting.
So we got question 4. So there are 2 common approaches to writing in general, and one is referred to as plotting, and the other is referred to as
Ever wondered what it takes to make it in the movie business? Peel back the curtain with 4-6 Success Filmmaking. 4-6 Success Filmmaking is where filmmakers share their stories and the secrets.
It's beyond competitive out there.
There have been movies that it's taken me 10 years to get made.
Don't wait to create. Like, you've got to just keep making stuff.
Tune into 4-6 Success Filmmaking for your dose of cinematic realness, direct from the voices that have lived it.
Pantsing.
pantsing.
I know
yeah.
that one.
Yeah,
Also known as
pantsing.
discovery writing.
Yeah, pantsing. Flying by the seat of your pants. Nice. And what would you two describe yourselves as? Start with MJ since she got it. Are you a pantser or are you a plotter?
I'm a plotter, and actually, so for listeners, I also hail from another nerdy podcast, Sci-Fi Fantasy Addicts, SFF Addicts, and I am quite infamous for making our guests nauseous by talking about my plotting approach, which involves Microsoft Excel. So,
Wow,
an aggressive
all right.
plotter.
Yeah, I start off as a plotter. In fact, Cory Doctorow once said that my outlines are not so much outlines as they are novels without any dialogue. So I plot things really, and then I get like 2/3 of the way through the novel, and I realize that I've totally fucked up in the plotting. That there's some point over here that totally contradicts some point over there, but the book is due in like 3 months, and it's already 2/3 of the way done. And at that point, I become a pantser.
Yeah,
So I guess
that's
I'm kind of a plantser. You know,
Yeah.
Panic
kind of like the
pantser?
wart but with an extra S in the middle.
Nice.
Pantsar.
Nice.
That makes it sound super cute.
Little hybrid model there. Nice.
Are you plotting right now your next novels?
Yeah. I mean,
Either.
I have one that I'm drafting off of a plot, and then I have one that I'm editing, but similar to the process, I plotted it, I wrote it, and it's shit. So I am now like kind of pantsing my way through a bunch of really hefty edits, because that's always the thing. Like, no matter how intense I make my plot, and I always make it like super intense and color coded and whatever, you still screw something up. So
All right. Well, let's move on to the last question of this round here. What medical condition was commonly mistaken for vampirism?
And we're going to give you some options. You don't have to just,
Pigmentosum. Hang on. Okay, go on. Give us options.
No, listen. I think we can you got this, man.
Do you already have it?
So
Well,
we
one of
do
them
have
was-
four options. One of them is progeria, anemia, porphyria, and fibromyalgia. It's one of those four.
What was that second one?
Anemia,
Anemia? No, what was the no?
porphyria.
Porphyria. That's the one I would choose.
Porphyria.
But there's also pigmentosum something or other, which was a massive aversion to ultraviolet light, where people just can't go out in the daylight or their skin literally starts to burn. And there's also just being dead, which I don't know if you'd consider it a medical condition. But
I mean,
but
ultimately,
people
I
would
think
feel-
it is.
It's
People
true.
would feel it appears to be I think it's incurable so far, but
I hope so.
yeah, no, there apparently were cases where people would die and then other people would report seeing them. So they'd dig up the body and the body would have moved and it would have been kind of puffy and reddish and suffused with blood. And these are all sorts of post-mortem things, right? The ATP in the cells discharges, so the body kind of twitches and moves. And so the position changes, the body appears to have fed on blood because all of a sudden it's got this ruddy complexion.
Yeah.
And so that kind of gave people the idea that this thing dug itself out of the ground and then went around hunting and then dug itself back into the ground, tamped down the ground, closed the casket over itself. I mean, these are superpowers that you never really hear about in most vampire lore.
Well, I was going to say, though, if I can suspend my disbelief to think that a dead person came back to life, crawled out of the ground, and fed on the blood of another person, I feel like I can suspend my disbelief that they somehow managed to put themselves back in the ground.
Yeah, and laid some sod, and
I'll buy it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe they just hired a groundskeeper.
There you go.
I won't suck your blood if you lay some sod down on top
It's a
of me.
conspiracy is what it is. See, now we could get real deep.
The deep state.
Just to describe porphyria a little more, there were fangs. In addition to facial disfigurement, repeated attacks on the disease causes the gums to recede, exposing the teeth.
Oh, interesting.
So it looked like fangs. And there was also the myth of, or I guess the folklore of blood drinking. Because the urine of the persons with porphyria is dark red, folklore surmised that they were drinking blood. And there's also a high sulfur content in garlic, and I guess this led to acute pain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's like a lot of.
It's a lot.
I see where they were putting those pieces, right? Like,
Yeah.
In a time without advanced medicine.
Seriously, if we'd been writing back then, we would have taken those symptoms and said, hey, we can do something about that. It's a shame we never saw anybody urinate on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, though. It would be interesting.
That's right. Yeah, no, it was, and apparently it was actually a really common problem amongst the nobles, because they ate and drank so well and so much, because it affected the ability for the blood cells to carry oxygen throughout the body, and so it often gave them a pale pallor as well, which also contributed to the idea of them being sort of drained and dead looking, which is it's fascinating. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I knew that some of those features. I didn't know that. It really seems to be vampire right down the list, right? It seems to tick all the boxes. I had to realize that.
Exactly. Our next question is about a cat. It's specifically for Peter, not to exclude MJ. This is actually a question about the name of MJ's cat, who just happens to be the son of Thrain II, mentioned throughout many of Tolkien's works.
Oh, God. Well, I was going to say Zelda, but that's obviously off the table. I'm going to say Thorin, but I know it's wrong.
It is Thorin Oakenshield, as a matter of fact. That is
what?
the cat. Yeah,
that's the only dwarven name I know.
You nailed it.
Perfect.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So MJ, you got to tell us about Thorin.
He's my fluffy gray cat. He's my little man. So he is 9 years old.
Oh, that's great. He's got another 5 years before he has a 66% chance of developing kidney disease.
Yay!
Yay!
And if he makes it past 15, he'll have an 88% chance of developing kidney disease before he's 18.
Well, look at that. You've got so much kidney happy life left.
Yeah.
Oh, what a sweetie.
He's great. Look at him.
He's my little man. I call him my puppy cat because whenever I move from room to room, I'll just hear jingle, jingle, jingle because it's his little collar and he's just following me around. So
Yeah, we had a cat called Banana who did that.
Banana, another great cat name.
Solid.
Oh, we have a bunch of them.
Where are all the dogs? Like, what's where? We just got.
Okay.
Actually,
we're gonna have
Ryan and I do have dogs, so this is like.
I think I speak for both MJ and I when I say that, we're going to give you a pass on this one. We're not going to hang up in a huff this time.
Thank
But
you,
you
Peter.
have to remember that dogs are servile creatures. They're smart, they're wonderful, but they are pack animals. And as such, they are subservient. A dog will do whatever, will abase himself to gain your approval.
It's true.
Cats are totally fuck you. Like a cat,
100%.
cats are entitled. They are solitary hunters. They do tend to live in colonies, but when they're going out and doing things themselves, they do it for themselves.
Oh,
I knew we'd get some good material out of talking about cats.
That's right. Yeah, we can debase ourselves. It's fine.
All right.
Question 2.
Let's move on a little here. So question 2, round 2. This is going to be a tricky one, but I'll give you a couple of hints if needed. What song was Peter Weller listening to on his Walkman while filming the drug bust scene in RoboCop? I know that's a tricky one. Sorry,
This
MJ.
is a backstage thing, right? This wasn't.
This is a
It's a backstage
cut.
thing.
Wow.
So I'm going to give you a clue here.
I don't have a clue.
So Peter Weller listening on his Walkman. It's a drug bust scene where RoboCop just like annihilates everyone, and there's blood spraying everywhere. And there's a lot of Peters in this question and answer.
Shit, who was the guy that did that riff off Major Tom's Bowie, like Bowie's Major Tom? It wasn't Bowie, but there was a song that came out about that time.
Was he in Genesis? Was he a founding member of Genesis?
Peter Gabriel.
Peter Gabriel. What song? We're spraying blood everywhere.
Okay, it could be Biko.
1986.
Fuck.
I think it's this. It's the only other hit besides Sledgehammer that he would have had on So.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Oh, okay. Oh, hang on. The Pillows. The Big Time.
No,
That was the other hit. That and Sledgehammer was hits off.
there's
So.
one more then. I think it's the first song on the album.
Red Rain.
Red Rain by Peter Gabriel.
Nicely done.
I was like, I think your first couple
gonna
clues weren't
claim-
as obvious as you thought.
Also, again, I wasn't released until 1992.
I keep thinking of MJ's
Yeah,
release date.
I gotta thank you guys for this affirmative action you're taking on behalf of old white dudes.
Yeah.
Giving
Not
me
enough
I'm just
leg
giving
context
up.
myself
for old white men.
excuses.
That's right.
I'm just
yeah.
giving myself excuses to make myself feel better. That's okay.
I love it. We have question 3. This book, which is thought of as one of the first works of climate fiction, it's by John Wyndham. It's an allegorical framework in which an alien invasion and its effects on our world are met with denial, conspiracy, and apathy, and anti-science rhetoric. What is the name of that novel?
The Kraken Wakes.
The Kraken Wakes, exactly. Yeah, 1953. Yep. It's
I wasn't
it's
really
actually
then either. So you can't pull that
You
excuse.
can't
on me.
use that excuse this time. Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah, no, I actually until I did the research for this episode, I hadn't. I was familiar with some of his other works, but I hadn't actually heard of the Kraken Wakes before. But
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar as well.
it's it seems fascinating about the idea that aliens come to Earth and they end up deep down in the ocean where it's really high pressure, and there's a debate about whether they're there at all and their effects on the Earth, and it's
and
it's
guess who
weirdly
ripped that premise
prescient.
off for a big honking, big budget Hollywood movie in the late 1990s.
Oh, really?
James Cameron, The Abyss.
Oh, is that what that is pulled
Deep
from?
Sea Aliens.
Oh,
I don't know if he
interesting.
ripped that off, but he
Well,
ripped Harlan Ellison off for Terminator,
Interesting.
right?
Okay.
He even settled out of court and
Wow.
had to stick with acknowledgement to the works of Harlan Ellison text card on
Oh,
releases of the
interesting.
Terminator.
Interesting.
No
So
way.
we know he has ripped off at least one person.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
why
That's
wouldn't he?
fascinating. I had no idea.
Well, bad artists copy.
Yeah, what's that?
Good
What's
artists
that
steal.
quote? Yeah.
Everybody, all artists steal. The best artists steal from. I don't know. I can't remember. Make that a question.
Something about, yeah.
Right. Make it a
There we
question
go.
in round
No,
3.
make it a question. There we go. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. The Kraken wakes. Well done.
Was
All
that
right.
inspiration, Peter, for some of your work, or not so much?
I mean,
or-
who can say? I remember reading it in a big green, comfy chair after getting my parents to go off to church by themselves because I didn't want to go to church anymore. And I would make meringue and I would eat meringue out of a bowl and read science fiction books. And that was when I read it. I was in like grade 10 or something.
Is that right?
But like, everything inspires you back then. I mean, there's a shitload of books that I will say, oh, I wanted to write like this guy. I wanted to have something with that kind of impact. And Kraken Wakes isn't one of them, but I do remember being impressed all to hell and back at how cool it was, the way he built the tension. People would basically send a sampling cable down, and it would come up kind of sheared off and melted. And that's all you knew, was that there's something down there was doing that.
Ooh, yeah.
That all of a sudden diatomaceous ooze started showing up in the Gulf Stream. And like, what does that mean? It seems like a really obscure thing, but the implication was that something down there was mining, something was digging up the bottom ooze, and it was showing up in surface currents. All these really cool little clues that kind of like the shark in Jaws, right? You hardly ever see the shark in Jaws for the first 3/4 of the movie. You just get these glimpses.
But that's the brilliance, right?
Yeah, it really is. And I remember being, I mean, hell, given that we're talking like the early 70s that I read it, and I'm still remembering those elements.
It must have affected. Yeah,
it
had an
obviously
impact.
left an impression. I don't know if it didn't consciously inspire anything I wrote, but
Right.
Was
that around the time that you had read the Stars My Destination as well, sort of that time period in your life? Or
I read The Stars My Destination when I was still back in Calgary. I was like 8 or 9.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, a friend of my brother's, David Dryden, gave it to me, gave me a bunch of things, and it was like it was kind of a revelation to me.
Right on.
Nice. All right, move
Tristan.
on to the next question here. Question number 4. What year was the first book in the Redwall series by Brian Jacques published?
Oh gosh. Okay, wait. I should know this. I could go get it on my shelf and look at it, but I won't.
You weren't released yet.
I wasn't released. I know. This was pre-release.
Vaporware.
Yes. I know. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna say 86.
Nice.
Correct.
Nailed it.
Correct.
Yeah. 1986.
I honestly, I knew it was like
Redwall.
late 80s. I took a guess. I'm not gonna lie and pretend that I knew that.
Now we do have a bonus question as well.
Go for
about Brian Jacques. Sure, yeah. So, did you know that he had a band?
What? No.
Yeah. He formed it with his 2 brothers, actually, in the 60s. And so the fact you didn't know he had one probably means you don't know the name of it then, if that's the case.
I do not.
Okay, well then this will just be a fun fact for you. They were called the Liverpool Fishermen. And they played folk music. And yeah, it was him and his 2 brothers well before he wrote the Redwall series. So that was kind of a fun thing.
Oh my gosh. Well, he's even more delightful than I thought.
if that's possible. Yeah.
I know, right?
That's awesome.
So can you tell us about those books and when you read them and how they've affected or I guess inspired your writing?
Oh yeah, Redwall was my gateway drug to reading fantasy at all. I read them all the ones that were out by then, because I think he kept writing them until like after like 2010, even like for a long time. But I'd read all the ones that were out 4th, 5th grade. That was like all I did. And then like I was a cool kid. That's sarcasm. So my friends and I were all obsessed with these books, and like at recess we would like pretend that we were like little mice and rats and like pretend that we were like having battles.
Okay,
it was great.
The next time Doofus brings in a rodent, I'm going to name him after you.
You should name him Martin the Warrior. Is what you should name the
No,
next.
I don't know
The
Martin
next
the
little
Warrior,
mouse.
but I know you now.
Perfect. I would be honored to have a
I
cute
love
little
that.
mouse or a fierce little rat. I could be a little feral rat. I'm good with that too.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
Battle Rat. Battle Rat. We had Battle Rats Mark 1, 2, and 3. They would like
Yes.
scream and they would hurl themselves at you, and you would like have gardening gloves and.
Like, ah! Yes. But yeah, no, Redwall was foundational. And honestly, though, too, because sometimes like you were obsessed with books when you were a kid, and then you go back to read them as an adult, and you're like, oh, I see why I like this as a kid. But like, for my adult reading, taste, it's not hitting how it used to. Not true for Redwall. I read a bunch of them during like the lockdowns because I needed some nostalgia, and they are still delightful.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, actually, after doing research for this episode, I got the first book, and my daughter and I are reading it together. She's 10, and is she's already quite. We're only about 4 or 5 chapters deep, but she's quite enthralled with it. So yeah, thank you for that.
I bet you never.
Love it.
I seem to recall that I recommended, A Clockwork Orange to you last time we spoke, and bet you haven't introduced your daughter to that one, have you?
All right, so we got a video game question here, and in the world of BioShock, these genetically modified humans are protectors, and sometimes called Mr. Bubbles. What are they?
It's a pancake game. You should know this one.
I know. I have actually never played BioShock though.
Big Daddies.
Big Daddies. That's right. That's what they're called. They've been sort of like genetically engineered into these dive suits. And now, as a bonus question, who do they protect?
Little sisters.
Little sisters. That's right.
Oh my god, I was gonna guess that just as like a shit eating guess because of the name, but
I would admit, fun fact. BioShock 2 was apparently in part inspired by my stuff.
Oh, that's so cool.
It is the one BioShock game I have not played. Because I have been told that they didn't integrate my stuff especially well. But apparently like halfway through it, they were like they encountered blindsight, and so like at the 2/3 mark, apropos of nothing, somebody starts railing on about the maladaptiveness of consciousness or something, and then they go back to the story. But yeah, no, it was they were going around saying that the first one was Ayn Rand objectivism, and the second one they were like inspired by 1984 and Peter Watts Blindsight, and so I still have not had the nerve to actually play that game.
Interesting. Nice. Right on.
That's still cool. I mean, even if you were to play it and like not love their interpretation, it is still aggressively dope that they, you know what I mean, were inspired enough. Anytime.
Absolutely.
Like, it is very cool.
It's like one of my dreams to even have like fan art created of my characters. You know what I mean? Like anytime your art begets more art, like that's such a win. Yeah. I love that so much. Yeah, that's awesome.
Very cool.
All right. Question number 2, final round. In the Shauna Maguire novel Into the Drowning Deep, an entertainment company sends a ship packed with marine biologists and oceanic researchers to the Marianas Trench in search of what?
I haven't read it, but I'm going to say, just for the hell of it, because it's the stupidest possible answer, mermaids.
Yeah, you got it.
Is it mermaids?
It's mermaids.
I haven't read that one either yet.
It is mermaids, or I guess ask sirens. Sirens is what they call them, but yeah.
Well, yeah, the sirens. But MJ, are you a Shannon fan? Do you like her stuff? Have you read her? Or?
I have not read. So here's the thing: I have a list of authors that I'm embarrassed I've never read anything by, just because, there's so many books and so little time. And this year I have been working through my big list of authors I've never read anything by. So like I've read some Scalzi this year. I've read some Tchaikovsky this year. I've read, you know what I mean? Just all these authors. Michael J. Sullivan, I've read some this year. All these big names. And I'm like, oh, how have I never read them before? So I'm working on it. Shauna Maguire's on the list, but I haven't gotten there yet.
So have you guys read this? How did they explain mermaids in the Marianas Trench?
I'm not sure.
I actually just finished it a little bit ago. I also realized that I read it. There's apparently a book before it. I read them out of order. Anyway, whatever. But the idea is that they're sort of a almost like a hominid type creature, like a hybrid creature that's been around for a very long time. They used to live in the shadows, but they've sort of been forced into the deeper parts of the ocean. They go in, there's a lot of focus sort of on like the biology of them and how they manage to survive, and in particular because one of the main characters, she is a sonographic expert, so like her whole thing is sort of mapping the bottom of the ocean with sound and radar. And so the idea is that one of their survival techniques is that they can mimic really, really well. And that's actually how they've
I thought
managed
you were
to
going to say they
lure.
could hear the siren songs or something through the
Well,
sonic whatever.
they can duplicate any sound that they hear, and that's actually how their language functions as well. So they can hear like the motor of a boat, and they can replicate that sound, or they can hear someone speak and they can replicate that sound, and that's how they've lured people for all this time. But the thing is that apparently there's another book after it that describes how they end up like sort of stuck in the trench, forced into the trench, and I haven't actually got to that part.
So
yet.
are they endothermic?
They apparently have the ability to control they can control their body temperature. Like they don't have to. Yeah, if that's what that means? They can control.
Yeah,
their own
yeah.
body.
No, I'm wondering in terms of retaining body heat. Like tuna, for example, are regionally heterothermic, so they're not technically warm-blooded, but the muscle action is enough to generate enough waste heat to keep parts of them warm. So that would work for mermaids. What I mean, are they literally like half fish, half human?
No, not at all, not at all. They're almost like have like an eel type tail, and even though they have extremities, they're not. They from a distance have the look of like a half human, half fish, but they're very much a fish. And they're like what would be known as like hair is actually like this bioluminescent sort of like
an algae something,
almost like a growth, that things live in, and they have like a symbiotic relationship with all the things that feed off them and clean them and things like that. So
that's actually not too far off from what actually happened with mermaids, which was like they thought that they were. I mean, as far as we know, mermaids were originally attributed to sirenians, like manatees. Dugongs.
I was going to say I thought it was manatees that they thought were mermaids.
Because they have because they'll sort of they would find them sort of lying on rocks with seaweed on their heads, right? And there was some famous European colonist type explorer who actually had in his log that he had actually seen some mermaids, and his annotation was, they are not quite so attractive as is commonly depicted.
Yeah, and I will say that the description of them in the book as well is they are much more monstrous than anything yet has been described in popular fiction for sure. And obviously it is a fiction tale, but she has done some fine work in terms of the biological research and stuff, and there's a lot of focus on that. It's cool, it's fun. It's really really
read that now.
It's a nice read, yeah, absolutely.
All right, question 3. In the early 1970s, Dr. Gordon Gallup Jr. pioneered this behavioral study technique to determine if an animal possesses the ability of visual self-recognition. This is called
the mirror test.
That is right.
That's one of them.
Oh, well, I was overthinking it.
Or
there's a bunch
mark
of,
test. Red spot technique. Rogue test.
But I mean, you kind of need the mirror for that to work, right?
So am I conducting said mirror test? Am I being a scientist anytime I try to show my cat himself in the mirror and he never recognizes that he's there?
No, you're just being a cat person.
So do cats know? Do we know if cats know?
My cat doesn't, so either they don't or mine's, sorry buddy, just a little dumb.
The weird thing is that there are certain upper primates. I think gorillas pass the mirror test, but I think chimps only pass it about 50% of the time. There was a paper that came out a while ago, which has since disappeared, that claimed that ants recognize themselves in mirrors. And they did exactly the same thing you were talking about with the paint, right? And honestly, reading that study, it was the cleanest methodology I've seen in behavioral studies of this point. Like they didn't just, put a dab of paint on. They put a dab of blue paint on, and when they got the grooming stuff in front of the mirror, they tried sticking, they put they put paint on another ant. So basically they would have plexiglass with an ant on one side and an ant on the other side, right? And when the ant saw another ant with blue paint on it. It did not try to groom itself, but when it saw itself with paint on, it tried to groom. They changed the color of the paint so that it would blend in, because I thought maybe it's grooming because the paint is itching or something.
Right,
Right?
it can feel it.
Maybe
Yeah.
yeah. So they put it in the same place, but had it blend same color as the carapace. They stopped grooming. They didn't see it. They put the paint on the behind the head so that the ant wouldn't be able to see it in the mirror. It wouldn't groom. I mean, the problem is it appeared in a predatory journal called the Journal of Science. I mean, I don't know. There's been some interesting work on insects that suggest that they are in fact conscious. Whether they recognize themselves, we don't know. But the weird thing is that the people who authored this study have also published in peer reviewed journals. As far as I know, they never made it to like Science or Nature, but they made it to the mid-level stuff that I was publishing in when I was a scientist. So it's weird. I mean, it's you've got to basically dismiss it now as apocryphal, but mirror tests aren't necessarily, I think, the be all and end all, but it's an interesting metric for sure.
Very cool stuff.
All right, second last question.
Question 4. Where does the first book of Scott Lynch's Gentleman Bastard series take place?
The city of Camor.
And why would you know that?
Are you married to Scott Lynch?
No. I'm famously obsessed with the series, though, and I named my story world Tamor as an homage to Camor. Thank you for the softball. I needed it.
And is there going to be a third installment? So
there will not. There is only it's a duology, and that's it. And I planned it that way from the beginning. So I know a lot of times we do trilogies, and I like long series, but I have ADHD, and so I like reading short series too. And I figure I might not be the only one. So
absolutely, right on.
Well, share the short series wealth.
Lovely.
And can you tell our listeners about the book or the duology you're talking about?
Yes, I can. So it's the Tales of Tamor duology. So 2 books. The first book, Among Thieves. Actually, I don't know if you guys have a video component to your show, but I have copies here, so I might as well. The first book, Among Thieves, it's fantasy heist story. So 6 thieves team up to steal a magical artifact, but every member of our heist team is a selfish jerk, and they're planning to screw everyone else over and take the loot. And then book 2, Thick as Thieves, is the fallout from that inevitably disastrous heist. So yeah, it's fun. It's a good time. They're meant to just be kind of like fun, entertaining, humorous reads. So if that's your vibe, maybe check them out. Also, there's a lot of swearing and violence. So if that's not your vibe, don't check them out.
Appreciate the PSA.
Right?
Sounds great.
The warning. Yeah. If you're not okay with F-bombs, then they might not be for you.
All right. We are down to our very last question of the game.
Yeah, and this could go either way, I think. I'm not sure where you got this one from, Ryan. I did not know that this. So I didn't know. So sorry, this is a film question, but I didn't even know this film existed. So.
Oh boy! All right.
Outer space.
And this is a kind of a neat callback because the first question we asked was sci-fi films from 1982. This is a film from 1982. Tom Hanks' first feature role was in 1982. Huh?
Splash.
The Flash?
Splash.
Splash.
Oh,
No.
Oh, okay, never mind.
I think that was a Ron Howard film too, wasn't it? That was a big one. All right.
Yeah.
So Tom Hanks's first feature role in 1982 was a made-for-TV movie about Dungeons and Dragons, and it was called
Monsters and Mazes.
Yeah, Mazes and Monsters.
Mazes and Monsters.
Oh my
Close
gosh.
enough.
I'm pretty sure it was Monsters and Mazes. Are you sure it was?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Yeah, we got it.
I have never heard of this, but that's amazing.
Neither have I.
It was the height.
Did you watch this on
height
TV?
of all the anti-Dungeons and Dragons?
Panic.
It turns your kids to Satan.
Oh my
and so
God, I
on.
didn't even think about that. A Dungeons and Dragons movie in the 80s, height of satanic panic, and somehow Tom Hanks still becomes America's sweetheart. That is a story for
flex.
him.
It's a
I'm
flex.
sure. Yeah, that really
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah. No, this actually like largely contributed to a lot of that panic, right? Because the movie itself is very misinformational about what the game is and how it works, and it's also based on a completely fabricated news story about a kid that went missing in Michigan. He did go missing, but the reporter that investigated this disappearance really focused on his tabletop fantasy gaming to a degree that was like weirdly out of proportion, and that's what made Rana Jaffe write the novel that then this movie was based off of, and like spiraled into this weird, this like satanic panic, moral panic around role playing. It's so weird.
So weird. Oh my gosh, I've never even heard of any of that. And that's I'm interested in D&D, and I'm from Michigan. I feel like I should know of this in some capacity. Yeah.
Do either of you play, or have you played
you
D&D?
play?
I guess the last time I played was, I don't know, maybe a year ago, maybe right after the lid came off, after the pandemic receded for a bit. I used to play. I mean, I discovered it back in grad school, and I was like part of a group that was kind of looked down on by, all the serious grad students who were trying desperately to get published in Science and Nature, while the rest of us went around playing paintball, calling ourselves the Ice Fairies, and playing Dungeons and Dragons. And
I like it. Your group sounds cooler.
Actual relationships broke up throughout the course of some of those campaigns. It was really weird. Some people took it really seriously. I mean, we never turned to Satan because we were all empiricists.
You managed to,
but there was still some emotional dysfunction. Like there were still some people who had serious fallings out over it as a result. And since then, there's just, we know somebody who every now and then will just sort of do a one night campaign. So we sort of go over to her place and play. But yeah, no, it was.
That's great. Do you have a favorite class, or?
My go-to character is Blinderslith, the half elf. He's a mage.
Nice. Magic user. Well done.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I've never actually played D&D because I never had like a group of like nerdy enough friends that were interested in playing. But I mean, like, I consume content of other people playing it, and then like I am obsessed right now. I know it's not, but it's very much based on it. I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3 on my PC right now.
Oh, yeah. No, that's honestly, if you ever did want to play what would be considered like the modern version, like 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, that game is directly based on the mechanics of that system. So
for sure. That's
like, you are well placed
for initiatives and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm still stuck. All my manuals and everything are like 2nd and 3rd edition, I think. So
right. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, you might want to try and get into it, MJ. I mean, apparently it is more popular now than it's ever been. Apparently now it's more popular with women than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do things like, as a DM, like you can give I built an artifact once called the Rod of Orgasm, and and they found it. They had no idea what it was.
And then the bard was very excited about it.
They tried to use it in combat, and it didn't do anything for two turns, right? Because it takes a while to sort of stimulate the right nerves. And then this carrion crawler they were attacking just suddenly sort of flipped over on its back and started shivering. And once they figured out that it was in fact a wand of orgasm, the whole campaign kind of ground to a halt. Like they just started fighting over the wand of orgasm and shooting each other with it. And like you would spend an entire evening with them just sort of, giving each other tasks, and ever more ludicrous tasks, so that whoever won the task would like get to hold the wand of orgasm for the next 3 hours, sort of thing. It was a great, I thought it was a wonderful invention, but it nearly derailed the entire game.
It sounds like it derailed the whole game. It just, it just took it in a different direction. That's all.
You can always count on Peter Watts to make you smile a little bit. I'll tell you that. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoy these Trivia from the Bridge episodes. If you've stuck around to the end, we really appreciate you being here. Please like the show, follow the show, rate the show. Let us know what you think of the show. We really appreciate it. Thank you, MJ. Thank you, Peter. That was a lot of fun. Thank you, Ryan. That was a lot of fun to hang out, do some trivia. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time.